So we got a bit of an announcement from the U.S. Department of Energy yesterday. How's that been for you?
Well, it was a wild day, that's for sure. There was a lot of shares that transacted, I think, across the globe. You know, it's not very often that you're in a sector that can be pushed around by things like a report from the U.S. government. But look at the interest that, it kind of, and how it played out in the last 2 days, everywhere in the uranium space in the world. So, I'm kind of proud that at least some of our involvement, may have, kind of created some interest in the space.
Well, it's certainly done that. I mean, since the moment you submitted the Section 232 petition through to now, I guess the uranium space has been holding its breath, unfortunately, almost figuratively, and literally in some cases holding its breath, trying to work out what was going to happen. And that finished the end of in the middle of last year. The Nuclear Fuel Working Group then put its heads together to try and come up with the recommendation that it did yesterday. So this discussion document and recommendation was talking about how to restore America's competitiveness in the nuclear fuel, and I think nuclear fuel advantage they use, but the competitiveness globally. It was a very bold document in terms of the macro, but was it what you were expecting?
Well, look, we're pleased with the document, Matt, and it's probably the boldest position the U.S. government has taken on the front end of the nuclear fuel cycle in decades. Okay, it doesn't have a lot of details in it, but I think you got to go back to the fact that it is a policy document. Okay, there's still things that have to be filled in here, but there was some very strong language about the importance of the whole nuclear fuel cycle, including uranium mining and how uranium mining had to be supported, needed assistance. So look, as I said, we're pleased with the document. Would we all like more details? Yes, we would. But, we're proud that we had a significant role in getting the United States government to take a policy position that had been taken for decades. So, we're happy with the document, but we're awaiting more details.
Okay, I know you've just come off of a call with shareholders and people listening in this afternoon. What were the kinds of questions that you were fielding? Were people concerned that this document has done nothing for you? There's no clarity about what it means for energy fuels. What were they concerned about?
Yeah, look, I think that initially some that reviewed the report thought it didn't have a lot of detail in it, and they were disappointed with that. But I do think that once we kind of explain to people that it's a policy position, it's a stepping stone, a very significant stepping stone, they become more comfortable with that. I think that some of the questions are just, well, so how does it all work? And we say, well, we don't know yet, but we think that it's focused on keeping the front end alive and prosperous, but it's also not trying to overdo it too. I think that I think there's a focus, or will be a focus, and again I'm speculating a little bit, that it should be focused on proven existing producers, existing infrastructure, but it also says that they will review it, periodically to make sure that they're achieving the objectives. So it's really kind of a policy roadmap for the whole front of the fuel cycle, recognizing you need all the steps in that process: uranium mining, conversion, and enrichment, but you also need a healthy nuclear fleet to have all those legs covered. And that was the purpose of the Nuclear Fuel Working Group. It was a more holistic approach than the Section 232.
No, I mean that's for sure. But with that macro picture that they've painted, I mean, we'll focus on what it means, domestically first. It means that they're trying to get, as you say, their house in order for the first time in 30, 40 years, and they do talk about taking China and Russia head on, and I get all of that. It's a very ambitious program. Those ambitious programs cost money. They take time. They're a huge amount of planning. Working out the economics of these things. So me as an investor, people watching this as investors thinking, well, what does that mean for US mining companies today? And I think some of them have latched on to the phrase, or the line was used, direct purchase starting 2020. Is that going to be beneficial to you? Do you understand what it means?
Well, look, we don't entirely know what it means, but we think 2020, we don't think that was an accident. The budget package that was submitted by the president for the 10-year program was starting in 2021. So we're asking and still advocating for immediate action, perhaps through some executive process, that may be available to the president. And in our case, and probably in UR Energy's case, matter of fact, I know in their case, our two companies have inventory. And we would like to be able to sell that inventory at a premium price this year in 2020. We think that's the best way to stimulate those, particularly existing producers, because we've held that inventory because it didn't have fair value in the marketplace, and that could give us a huge boost in the near term. So we hope for purchases as a first step, but we'll see. We don't know.
It also refers to at least 2 U.S. producers. I mean, you are Energy and yourself are the petitioners. Do you think they are referring to you specifically, or was that just a throwaway phrase? Could be anyone.
Look, I don't think it's specific to the two companies. It says at least 2, could be more than that. But I do think that, when you look at the nuclear fuel stockpile and the demand that would have, I don't believe it's been meant to be split 8 or 10 ways for 8 or 10 producers. I think it needs to be fairly selective, focused on a few producers. I think that, it certainly should be focused on, some ISR production, but I also think it should be focused on White Mesa as the only conventional mill in the United States, and the fact that not only is it the only conventional mill, it's the only primary vanadium production facility, and that the other benefits that project has now or potentially could have in the future.
Okay, so when you talked just a moment ago about premium, you're talking about a premium to today's price, presumably. If you're looking for a number, what number are you picking?
Well, look, at the spot price is up to about $33 today, I believe, which is certainly much improved from the $24, $25, but it's still not high enough to provide for sustainable production. We have always said and continue to say that the fair price of a pound of uranium produced in the Western world is $60 a pound or greater. That's a sustainable price for proven low-cost producers. Many companies cannot produce uranium for that in the world. Matter of fact, a lot of them cannot produce uranium for that in a sustainable way. So look, we think it should have a 6 handle on it plus. We think 65 is sort of the real number. We can produce uranium for less than that. Some of our projects, like the Canyon Mine, can be much, much lower than that. But we've had these assets for a number of years, and we don't want to high grade them and not get the margin that we deserve on these assets and the money that's been spent on those assets over the course of many, many years. So, even companies like Cameco, they don't talk up with 4 handles on a lot of their production. They might sign some contracts in the 40s if they can trade into them. So, yeah, we need sustainable Western world costs and values on the inventory.
Okay, so if you are to get that, you need to be part of a dialogue, part of a process where there's some form of negotiations, an explanation as to why you need the price that you want. Are conversations like that already in the works? Because I'm looking at this policy document. I think it's a great phrase that you used earlier. It's a policy document. It's going to need to engage stakeholders, you being one of them, uranium miners across the earth being one of them. Have they set those up? I mean, how quickly are things going to move into motion? Have you any idea that they're even going to do that?